All Advancements is the best category in Minecraft because it's stupid and it takes you like at least 10 hours on your first run. But seriously, if you've ever considered running AA, I highly recommend it because this was a wave of game sense for me when I first did it. Like, I finally learned anything about bees in Minecraft. I didn't care about bees. I still kind of don't, but at least I know about them. Anyways, I'm gonna try and record this like a miniature skyblock video because I don't know how to highlight like a million hours of recording. Enjoy video and subscribe. Luckily, doing the first part of this run is super easy because all you gotta do is just beat the game. I mean, you might grab a few extra things on the way, like gold blocks for your beacon in the future, but it's pretty casual. I think the worst part whenever you're trying to just beat the game at the start is managing your inventory because if you get like an ancient debris or crying obby glowstone or tons of other items or blocks. There are so many that are just not worth wasting because you'll use them later in the run. Because instead of tossing out so many items like you usually do, you want to front load everything you get because even if it takes you another 8 hours before you actually use it, you feel bad if you don't keep it with you. Speaking of getting a disgusting amount of resources, luckily I only had to use 3 of my like 40 pearls that I definitely needed to get to the fortress, so that was really good on my part. It was totally unintentional that I kept all the glowstone I did out of a bastion because I was able to get the not quite 9 lives advancement while just fighting blazes. It's just actually been that long since I've seen or used a respawn anchor for its intended purpose. Just kidding, I didn't even set my spawn point with it, so it's purely cosmetic. And then after doing some calculated, I was finally able to put myself anywhere near the stronghold, which is perfect because the stronghold's the first place I can really dump all of my garbage out. I ended up spawning in a cave where I'm just deafened by the sound of obsidian, so that was pretty cool. Anyways, found the stronghold, and priority now was to set up camp in the portal room and find a library so I can get books for enchanting later. Oh yeah, also because libraries can have busted enchanted books, I don't know why. Oh yeah, and of course the books. I got like 4 stacks, which is way overkill. After that, I could finally clear up my inventory so I could just go kill the dragon, raid an end city, and come back. Here's an unnecessary water clutch because I wasn't paying attention. To actually get the free the end advancement, you need to kill the dragon without using beds, and that was literally my biggest concern this entire fight was just the worry that I was gonna forget and kill the dragon with a bed, and then, well, the run would be dead at that point. Now, this probably isn't the most fun part of the run, and it's going into the end and finding out that your end city is thousands of blocks away and transporting a shulker back to an end gateway is just not possible. But this seed was viable enough. Like, it had a city within 32 chunk render distance, so first run ever, it's not terrible. End terrain is like really, really clear and flat though, so getting here took no time and I was ready to levitate for 30 minutes straight. This part's fun though, look at this. Bang! Oh my gosh. Oh, you thought that was good? You thought that was good? Look, this is disgusting. Why can you get a pickaxe like that in 50 minutes of gameplay? And now for the Elytra, so I can spend the majority of my run gliding around for biomes and tridents. Just kidding, it's not that bad, and Elytra looked pretty sick. You remember that time whenever I said end city loot is disgusting? Even after stopping by the portal room and clearing out my inventory, it totally gets destroyed again because of all the armor and swords I'm picking up, but now that they're, shulker boxes, I don't have to worry about my inventory ever again because I just have multiple inventories. I was done with the end at this point. I just forgot to do great view from up here where you levitate up 50 blocks, so time loss, I guess. I probably got punished though because right as I came back from the end, I got thunder, which is really annoying because thunder is so rare, or I guess it just takes so long to get. But it's completely pointless if I don't have a trident, so now I have to wait until next time to actually get the advancements. So to appropriately release my anger, I decided it was time to kill. I got a skeleton in the pit and made some really sketchy sniper duel setup. It went something along the lines of this, and then I, dug it some more so the arrow could actually hit it. And then I got, shot a few times. I only brought, 15 arrows to this, and I didn't even remember where the skeleton was. I was trying to see where I put the hole or dug the hole, and I already forgot, but I vaguely remembered. Once it turned day, it was time to spend all of it trying to get a trident by flying around to different ocean ruins because getting a trident is one of probably the most RNG or slowest parts, and having Elytra is huge for that. While flying around, I spotted a swamp and actually decided to make use of bowline diamonds. Or more bold than lapis, because since the two are correlated, you can backwards engineer it to get lapis, and I needed a ton for the enchanting. So I started setting up the enchant table because I wanted to get those out of the way pretty soon. One, because having mending on Elytra is necessary, and two, because when you first enchant, the enchant is always the same every time you load up a world as long as you don't relog. And for an iron sword, the first enchant it gives you every time, anytime ever, with level 30 is looting 3, unbreaking 3. I don't know why that is, but it's pretty cool. And then these enchants were just totally unrelated. I guess it's just beginner's luck because I just ripped almost all the enchants I needed. Thanks. The only thing left at this point was mending, which meant it was time to break and place lecterns for like 300 hours. Spoiler alert, my trident luck was not that great. I guess I won't say exactly what it is, but you'll see how much farther in the run it takes before I actually get it. Other important thing to note, while getting tridents, I need to make sure I kill zombies that have nautilus shells and to pick up some fish on the way. Okay, the fish aren't really necessary, but it's what I like to use for arbalistic, because there's 3 different types of fish, which makes it really easy. Shells and fish are just a few things you overlap though, because for how long you have to fly around and for how much you have to fly around, you'll find a lot of biomes, villages, and other mobs you may need to overlap. Speaking of biomes to overlap, I finally found my first rare one after almost 4 hours into the run, except for the Mega Taiga that's basically by spawn, but that one's easy. Also while flying around, I think I rolled the shortest thunder cycle in all of Minecraft history. Imagine that. Oh my. After that, I went back to the jungle so I could breed the more annoying mobs like pandas and ocelots. And while I waited for spawns, I set up arbalistic in the meantime. I did like 5 minutes of practice on how to do arbalistic the night before, and I just forgot everything because whenever I tried to get all 5 mobs shot with the crossbow, I forgot to weaken 2 of them, so it just didn't even work. But it wasn't a big deal. I could just go back for fish and successfully kill 5 innocent animals. And then after that, I made a remarkably similar mistake because when I tried to do 2 birds, 1 arrow, I didn't weaken the phantoms enough because I didn't test this enough, so I actually hit both of them, but they both didn't die. Once the rain stopped, I finally remembered to bring buckets of milk with me because while trident hunting, I'm gonna find a lot of monuments, which are super good for building up gold blocks for the beacon, also for how to get here, but that's way farther in the future. And not just that, I found another rare biome on the way, which is great because adventuring time is almost over, and that's like the worst advancement ever. Mesas actually don't have that much to offer other than being a rare biome, but this one had an exposed mine shaft, so I could at least kill a cave spider for the monsters hunted advancement in the future. This mesa was nice enough to give me a silk touch book though, so I guess it's not the worst. I mean, I didn't need it, but it's cool. You know how there's a bunch of things to overlap whenever hunting for tridents? Yeah, I forgot another one of those things, and that's to kill fish on the way. I want to get tons and tons of raw fish because you have to breed every type of cat, which is not the most fun because you basically need a village to get cats, unless you get like a witch hut. Correct me if I'm wrong. I started hunting tridents at 1 hour and 20 minutes, and here we are 4 hours later, finally getting the magical drown that actually drops it. Maybe if I didn't have a looting sword, the fact that I killed like 30 trident drowns before I got my trident would be okay, but I had a looting sword. But that was by far the hardest part out of the way. After that, you just add channeling and wait for thunder. I actually wasn't sure what I needed to do after getting the trident because I was so focused on it, but I stumbled across a bee's nest and I still had no idea, like literally zero idea how bees work, so this was not going to be very fun. What I didn't know at the moment was I should have just taken the beehive immediately because I had a silk touch hoe I made way earlier, specifically for beehives, and I didn't realize that the leaves in front of the beehives were blocking them from getting out, and I could have just gotten a full beehive on the spot, which would have been great. At that point, I think the only thing that could have been done is to wait for night for the bees to get back in their hive, so I decided just to go to the nether and try to get uneasy alliance out of the way. But I didn't realize that I need a pearl to get onto the roof, and I used all of my pearls earlier in the mesa whenever I was trying to spawn an endermite because I was bored, so it was time to go and find a bastion. It's a good thing that the bastion I found was stables because for some reason Mojang decided that hoglins could be bred, so that was the thing that had to be done, and Also, Zoglins, that mob that like is completely useless and everyone forgets about. Yeah, I have to kill that. Oh no, they don't. There was a bit of a problem with the stables I had though. In stables, it has gaps and ramparts. And good gaps and good ramparts have gold blocks, and you can just pick those out of the bastion. But that bastion had double bad gap, and all three ramparts were bad with no gold blocks in them. So I had to find another bastion, and I surely did. I just casually pulled up to a treasure and housing right next to each other, so that's a few gold blocks. I had gotten sidetracked so much from doing Uneasy Alliance at this point where I just decided to start overlapping other Nether achievements. One thing I definitely needed to get out of the way was this God Apple here. Getting a God Apple is super convenient for how do we get here, but at this point in the run I didn't even know what the God Apple was for. And then I got hot tourist destinations out of the way because I don't know why I didn't get this at like the very start of the run, because this is probably the easiest purple advancement or challenge, I don't know what you call it. And then I can finally start doing Uneasy Alliance, so I started staircasing up here because I got my pearl trades. There's probably another way of getting on the nether roof that doesn't involve a pearl, but I just did what I knew and wasted time. A mistake I made the first time I ever tried Uneasy Alliance was I didn't check that the biome was Soul Sand Valley, because having the biome as Soul Sand Valley like drastically increases the chances of spawning a ghast, because some biomes don't even spawn ghasts, so making sure you're in the right biome while doing this makes it, possible. Now, since ghasts are like a little bit bigger than the player, I had to make sure my portal was 6x6 on both ends. And then from there, it's just making a platform on the nether roof that I can spawn on, flying up into the sky to despawn everything, and just resetting that over and over until a ghast actually spawns. Which didn't take very long. Easy! Oh, magma cube. Magma cube. Yeah. But first, here's another impulsive moment where I just really wanted to try and get an Endermite. Except this time actually worked. Shut up. I started flying around for a fortress again, except I actually found one this time without getting sidetracked. Unfortunately, this fortress was probably the biggest time loss in the whole run. The sword I used through the whole run had looting 3 on it, and to get a skull with looting 3 is a 5.5% chance, or basically a 1 in 19. So on average you only need to kill, what, 57 withers? And that's not bad at all. That's not bad at all, but I killed more than 57 withers to get my first 3 skulls. I had to kill 179, which I have no idea what the chances of that are, but it's stupid. After wasting almost an hour just to get my wither skulls, you know what I did once I made the wither? I built the wither against the nether roof, because it's like, oh yeah, that's how you kill it, right? But I forgot you need a wither rose, which means the wither that I just spawned meant nothing. Luckily, I didn't have any energy left to care, so I just went back to the fort and got another 3 skulls, which of course weren't even average rates. They took at least another 100 more withers before I got it. So I started building my second wither, got myself loaded on arrows and gapples, and then right as I spawned it, I realized that I had already killed the last wither. I have the skull, I just need the rose, so I just let the wither roam free. While the wither roamed the earth and killed everything, I started farming villages for cats, because to get a complete catalog I have to tame all 9 cat variants, which isn't very fun because villages only spawn 1 to 4 cats, I think, on world generation or something like that. That opened a pretty big window for overlap though, because I had never got around to growing and eating beetroots, so I still had to make beetroot stew, rabbit stew, and eat just raw beetroots. And also, being on the ground instead of flying around allows for phantoms to spawn. I had such a hard time getting the 2 birds 1 arrow advancement because the sun kept coming out right after they spawned, so they just burned to death. I don't know if that's a thing that's supposed to happen on easy mode, but I still got the advancement, so who cares. I kept looking for villages because at this point I only had 2 or 3 more cat variants to tame, and while looking for villages I found the last rare biome I needed to get out of the way. And what was stupid about this is I could have had adventuring time by the time I found the Mushroom Island, but I forgot to get Snowy Beach when I found a snow biome earlier, and I didn't remember the chords of it. So instead of just being normal and flying around like I should, I decided to go into the nether and blind travel at some random really far chords and just hope I hit the biome instead. It ended up not being that bad of an idea because I found another treasure bastion, and this one actually had debris in it. I flew out at least 1,000 blocks because I wanted to try to at least get the subspace bubble advancement, but it needs to be 1,000 blocks from your last entered portal to actually get it, I think, which I didn't do because this one wasn't far enough. As per usual, I spawn in a cave whenever I leave the nether, but you won't believe what biome I ended up spawning in. I didn't deserve this at all. Yeah. And then I just immediately went back into the nether to get the netherite mining out of the way. I never thought that all of that netherite mining I rushed and learned to do in the manhunt videos actually came into play once ever in my life, but here we are. There's not a whole lot to commentate about strip mining, so it took me like 25 minutes, got my 5 netherite ingots, 4 for the armor, 1 for the hoe, and the only thing left in the nether to do now was subspace bubble and country load. I went back into the overworld and started hunting for a village in the snow, and I found one, but I'd just like to compliment how incredibly good this blacksmith was. Okay, that wasn't really necessary, but it was cool, okay? Also, this village had the last cat I needed, so it still got value. Being in the snow biome meant that there was a really good chance of an igloo generating somewhere, which is just the perfect setup for Zombie Doctor. And by making use of Shift F3 to see my pie chart, the game was telling me that there actually was an igloo somewhere in render distance. I just had to find it. I ended up finding the igloo alright, but it was in such a stupid spot. Once I was in the igloo, I had to change it to hard so I could infect both villagers because for monsters hunted, I had never actually killed a zombie villager even after 10 hours in the run. So there was one zombie villager to cure and one zombie villager to kill. And since curing a zombie villager takes around 5 minutes, there was more time to overlap smaller advancements. Why is getting bullseye the most cheesable thing? Wow, look guys, I'm really good at the game. I decided this was a pretty good spot to set up camp, so I made some furnaces to smelt glass for later because I'm gonna need a lot of bottles and I never got around to actually making any. And while there was downtime for the sand to smelt, I started doing even smaller advancements I never got around to, like fishy business and hired help. Well, maybe not small, because I got to experience the joy of crafting a full set of netherite armor again. And I guess the hoe. Now's the point where things start picking back up. While reviewing my shulkers to make sure I had everything for how did we get here, I finally got thunder again after 9 hours. Hey, wake up. Good morning. Oh, were you tired? I marked down this part of the video literally just so you could hear the sound of the trident, because it's unironically cool. The only thing that was left to do at this point was to go back home, and get Subspace Bubble, which I could just do by going back home. I didn't understand how Subspace Bubble worked at first, because I have this portal that's over 1,000 blocks in the nether, and I thought it would work, but it didn't. But it only works if you're 1,000 blocks from your last entered portal, I think. So just going back to my home portal would have worked. And luckily, I was able to roll up on a bridge bastion on the way, which is perfect, because for some reason, the only place you can get a lodestone is from a bridge, so it became necessary in this run. Oh, weird sound. What's that subtitle? Lodestone compass locks onto lodestone. This is also totally unrelated, but when I was leaving the overworld after making a pit stop, a sheep just got obliterated by lightning. That's Why is everything— oh no, the sheep! The sheep got electrocuted! The reason I called it a pit stop is because there was still one thing left to do in the nether, and that was to get gas tiers for end crystals so I could actually respawn the dragon. Apparently, if you hold a looting sword in your main hand and offhand a crossbow, when you shoot a ghast with that, it still gives you the looting effect. The only thing that's annoying is that soul sand valleys like to have a lot of lava lakes, so getting a ghast that's actually over ground is a pain. And I probably got a bit too impatient a few times even with a fishing rod. Damn. Cringe. After that incident, I made it back to my portal, got Subspace Bubble, and it was finally time for the advancement to end all advancements. To set up how did we get here, I needed to build a platform on the coast that was near a village, outpost, and monument. I'm not going to go into anything that's close to detail on how to build this because I watched a tutorial made by T-Wags, who is like a genius, so credits to them for making this run possible. But this setup leaves a ton of room to set up a base and do things like get honey from bees and brew all of my like million potions. Then I gotta put all that glass I was smelting earlier to use and make some brewing stands. And then I make some more brewing stands. I wanted a brewing stand for each type of potion so I could have 3 of each, because I was expecting to take more than one try to do this, because up until this point I had never done How Did We Get Here. Got the honey block out of the way while waiting for the potions to brew, and now there was only one last annoying thing left to do, and that was to get the shulker. Okay, I guess the only thing annoying is bridging there and boating it back, because it's slow, it's not actually challenging. I feel like shulkers are just the equivalent to Amazon packages in the end, and I'm just pulling up to this end city and stealing the package off the front porch. After pushing the shulker up using a piston so I can actually get it in the gateway, I had to do a world spawn setup when I brought it to the well. What that means is, when you drop a shulker in the well in the end, it defaults to 0-0 in the overworld. But if you put a boat in the well before you put the shulker, then the shulker goes to your world spawn. The shulker came through successfully, which is great, but it also means I have to bridge more. Once that was set up, all of my potions were splash, I just had to take them out of the stands. And finally, I could start moving the shulker to his final destination. Once the shulker was locked in, everything was ready, but there was a whole nother nightmare ahead of me. First things first, I needed to kill a banner pillager so I can start a raid and get hero of the village. The raid also had to be started on normal mode so that Vexes and Evokers can spawn, and those were the last of the few mobs I needed to get the Monsters Hunted advancement. Once the raid was over, I needed to go back to the outpost so I could get Bad Omen again, just for the Bad Omen effect itself. And of course the Monument for Minor Fatigue, which is not my favorite, because it means you only have 5 minutes after getting the Minor Fatigue effect to actually do How Did We Get Here. Only thing left to do now was to get back to my setup and, oh yeah, get a dolphin. Everything was ready at that point. All that was left to do was to splash all of my potions and in order eat God Apple, Pufferfish, and Blindness Stew while working with the setup. Not much of a spoiler here, but this was not the winning attempt. The thought never crossed my mind that offhanding my bread could cause problems in the future. So when I tried to get all the effects by eating all the food, it prioritized my bread over the Blindness Stew here, and well, I got a Furious Cocktail at least. At this point I thought I was just over, because I only had one God Apple and I didn't know how to get the resistance effect. But thankfully there were some very nice people in my stream who told me how to beacon swap, because the God Apple is pretty much just for convenience. You can get resistance, fire resistance, and absorption without one. Obviously that makes the window tighter, because now whenever I do the setup, I have to do everything again except mid-setup I have to change the beacon's effect to resistance. Then I crafted several golden apples so I could get the absorption effect while doing the setup, and it was time for attempt 2. There was one other thing about beacon swap, and that meant I had to move the beacon right where my setup was. And what I didn't realize is that there was sand around my setup, and it caused a hole in the setup, so that I messed up. And not just that, the shulker ended up shooting itself and dying. And then I was like, okay, and I just stole another package from the end city. Then it was time for attempt 3, so I got all my effects again and went for it. By this point I had the strat down. There was nothing that could go wrong, or at least I thought. I had all the materials I needed, I knew what pattern to do it in. But guess what, the shulker took, like 15 seconds to shoot its levitation pellet at me? And then I just lost the haste effect whenever trying to do beacon swap. Which means at that point, I had gone through all of my potions, and I had to go get the resources and brew a whole nother set. At least I set a personal record for most pufferfish willingly eaten in a survival world. But it was time to finish this. My mental wasn't going to last much longer, so I hauled to the monument. Attempt 4, baby! It's fire as if I've ever seen it. Apple. You can swap, yep. Okay, resistance. Yeah, dude! Ugh. Get the out of here. So yeah, that setup's pretty cool. I only like it though because you can do this. Finally, the hard parts were out of the way, and the only thing remaining was the celebratory advancements. All that was left was to kill the dragon again. And to make a stone pickaxe. And then it was finally over. I didn't even have to kill the dragon. I could have left, but I wanted to kill the dragon for the satisfaction. I highly recommend anybody do an all advancement run at some point. This was an adventure that taught me way more about Minecraft than I thought it would. And if you enjoyed the run in the vid, please subscribe. This took me way too long to do and edit. Yo. Oh. Let's go. Did it go away already? Okay, come here. No! I'm gonna hit it. You can. Yo. That works. Come on, die already. Wicked. Ow. Let's go.